But the latest is, we signed and contracted to do a rematch, and that's what it is right now.
Do you know when it's going to be, when we can hear?
I don't got no date right now, but I know that's the next fight that Terence Crawford.
How long do you think it will be before we have some news about that?
I don't know. It's still up in the air, given the first male boxer, undisputed, in any division in a 4-belt era, and I honor, that, and if he was to come to me or activate his...
it could happen. Why not? If Crawford want to challenge himself to be great, let him try to be great, so, I'm with it. So, I'll be going for Bud, if he fight Canelo, I'll be going for him.
The sport is once again a mess. Just when it looked like Terence Crawford and Errol Spence Jr. were no longer together, talks for a rematch are back on the table as of April 2025. This time, the talks aren't just rumors. Both fighters are talking about it behind the scenes, and tensions are rising quickly as Crawford already challenges Spence's position in boxing. Let's catch you up.
I wanted to see that immediately after that fight, but now time has kind of ran its course. I don't want to see Errol. I just don't want to see Errol get done like that. That's all. Yeah, I believe Errol Spence is a generational talent, great fighter.
Crawford and Spence have never been ones to hold back, and now that the talks are becoming real, they are talking more and more about each other in interviews, on social media, and even in an angry live exchange. Since his terrible loss to Crawford in 2023, Spence has been away from the ring. Now he is more fired up than ever. He really wants this repeat because he says the first fight didn't tell the whole story and that he was worn out at 147 pounds. But Crawford is telling everyone of what happened the last time they fought, how he knocked Spence down 3 times and the fight wasn't even close. But Spence won't believe that story. He's still sure that when he weighs 154 pounds, everything changes.
But you gonna knock my first?
Because I don't want us personally, we talking about what we want to see. I don't want to see it. Because I know what it's going to look like. The same as it looked last time.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do.
Errol Spence wasn't the same.
What was wrong with him?
He looked slow. He looked he looked sluggish.
Why?
I can't tell you. I wasn't in camp.
At the division, he dominated for his entire career. All of a sudden, when it came time for this fight, he looked different. Why?
I wasn't in camp with him. I can't tell you. I don't know if his body finally broke down for being at 147 for too long.
Since Spence used the rematch option after their first fight, when Crawford beat him badly in July 2023. This whole rematch situation has been like riding a roller coaster. Spence wasted no time triggering the clause, determined to get another shot, but the contract was clear. Unless either fighter submitted written notice saying they couldn't make 147 pounds, the rematch would take place at welterweight again. Spence never officially filed that notice, but he and his team kept arguing that the fight should happen at 154. Crawford wouldn't have it. After beating Spence so badly, he had no reason to give him an edge. That's where the fight started.
But weight can't be used as an excuse and sort of say, I don't feel like it. Like, I'll go up to for this guy, but not another guy. So, that's sort of the spirit. The language is very, more precise and very definitive. But the concept is, out of fairness, is, let's not be selective.
Then Spence's health problems slowed everything down. Eye surgery, the recovery, and the doubts about whether he could even return to form. While Spence was dealing with all that, Crawford went on, won another title at 150 by beating Israel Madrimov, and shut down any talk of a rematch. Reporters asked him about it, but he barely admitted that it was possible. Nah, he said, dismissing it totally. At that time, it looked like the rivalry was over for good.
Question, I want your reaction. Is a Errol Spence rematch on the table still, or?
Nah.
All right, we're gonna wrap that. I'm trying to tell you.
But now things are changing fast. Crawford is no longer shutting the door completely. Spence is ramping up the heat, calling him out every chance he gets. Most fans are saying Spence deserves another shot, that the weight cut really did affect him, that it wasn't the real Spence in the ring that night. Others are calling that an excuse, saying he got exposed and a repeat would look the same no matter what weight class happens in.
I really believe that the fight would have went that way regardless, because stylistically, the fundamentals on that level, Crawford is just outclasses Errol Spence in every single category.
Spence, though, is making this personal. He is openly accusing Crawford of ducking him, of trying to walk away from the contract, and of acting like the fight never happened just because he got the upper hand the first time. Crawford, never one to let someone control the narrative, is firing right back. He is telling Spence he had his chance, that he got dominated, and that he didn't even look like he belonged in the ring with him.
447, but I'm sure he probably gonna push the weight up, but there's no gonna be no change in the decision. The performance still is gonna be the same. It might be even a little bit better. So he might want to watch out before he activate the rematch clause.
And now, in real time, both forces are making it clear that they are ready to go to war again. Spence, despite everything, is still optimistic. He is saying that Crawford has never fought him at full strength, that he wasn't himself in that first fight, and that he is going to prove everyone wrong. Crawford, on the other hand, is almost laughing at the idea that anything will be different. For him, Spence is always overrated. His style is too predictable, and if God got in the ring again, he would beat him even faster the second time. The trash talk is getting more intense by the day, and with both men finally saying that talks are happening, this fight is looking more real than ever.
Let's go! As you can see, man, breaking news. Errol Spence then activated that rematch clause to fight Terence again, right? Let's be honest, we all saw the fight. Crawford beat boogers out that boy.
However, this trash talk is already making some waves in the sport. Terence Crawford and Shocker Stevenson have always been tight, their bond built on years of respect, mentorship, and shared goals. But now their views on Errol Spence Jr.'s legacy are splitting them into opposite corners. Crawford, never one to sugarcoat his views, has ignited a firestorm by outright dismissing Spence's Hall of Fame credentials. Meanwhile, Stevenson, one of the sport's brightest young winners, isn't having it. The disagreement is stirring heated debates among fans, analysts, and even fighters, with views clashing over what truly makes a Hall of Fame career.
It's a good win. I'm still a fan. I hope he do well. But like, once it got to the point where I moved up in weight and I'm in the same weight as Spence, it's just like, oh man, you ain't fighting nobody. You this, you that, you this, you that. So now they trying to blemish my accomplishment just to boost him up. I'm like, dude, you're not gonna do that. Because I can retire right now and be in the Hall of Fame. He couldn't. Everything that I've accomplished, he's still trying to accomplish. I don't want to sound like I'm hating on him. I honestly don't know if he make it to the Hall of Fame with the accolades that he didn't got, right?
Crawford set this controversy in motion during an interview on the Pound for Pound podcast with Kamaru Usman and Henry Cejudo. He didn't pause when the topic of Spence's legacy came up. In his view, Spence doesn't make the cut. His reasoning: Spence only fought in one division, while he recognized Spence's accomplishments unifying 3 welterweight titles, beating top-tier opponents like Sean Porter, Danny Garcia and Dennis Ugas. Crawford was firm in his opinion that it wasn't enough for him. A Hall of Famer, someone who conquers multiple weight classes, builds an undeniable resume, and shows their greatness beyond a single division.
You discredit one of the best wins on your resume, it starts to make people look at your resume with a question mark. Terence Bud Crawford.
That statement itself is interesting to the whole boxing world. Crawford didn't just critique Spence's career. He essentially shut the door on any discussion of his place in boxing history. And this is why everyone in the sport is getting back at him, with fans and experts calling him out for downplaying Spence's achievements. Some see it as unnecessary disrespect, others feel Crawford is just being honest. But the most surprising pushback didn't come from analysts or former fighters, came from Shocker Stevenson, one of Crawford's closest friends. When asked about Crawford's comments during an interview with Best Women's Boxing Show, Stevenson was quick to disagree. I feel as though Errol had a great career, he said, standing firm in his stance. If it wasn't for Bud, he would have been undisputed. So he went and got every belt one by one by one. I think he's a Hall of Famer. His words cut through the narrative Crawford was trying to push, offering a different perspective, one that recognized Spence's dominance before their fight and what could have been if Crawford hadn't been in his way.
Terence went on Pound for Pound podcast and he said that Errol Spence will not be a Hall of Famer. Can you just give me your thoughts on that?
I disagree.
You disagree? Why do you disagree?
I feel as though Errol had a great career. If it wasn't for Bud, he would have been undisputed. So he went and got every belt one by one by one. I think he's a Hall of Famer.
Stevenson's stance highlights an ongoing struggle in boxing's Hall of Fame debates. Do accomplishments across multiple divisions determine greatness, or can a fighter cement their reputation? By ruling a single weight class, Stevenson clearly thinks that Spence's dominance at 147 was enough, but Crawford isn't budging for him being a unified champion in one division. Even with Spence's level of success, isn't enough for immortality.
I don't think Errol's run was long enough, no Diddy, to automatically put him in the Hall of Fame. He was a very good fighter. If there was a Hall of Very Good, he would be going into that. But Hall of Fame, no. If you were in charge of writing a Hall of Fame speech for Errol Spence, and I was in charge of writing a Hall of Fame speech for Bud Crawford, my Hall of Fame speech, listing my credentials, listing my accolades for Bud Crawford, would sound a lot better than your speech for Errol Spence, bro. Yeah, I don't think unifying and holding 3 titles automatically push you in the Hall of Fame.
The tension between Crawford and Stevenson might not be a full-blown rift, but it's certainly causing waves. Their friendship has always been built on mutual respect, but this is one of the rare times they publicly disagree on something big. Stevenson isn't just another fighter giving his opinion. He's someone who has spent years learning from Crawford, training with him, and looking up to him, so for him to go against Crawford's take so directly says volumes. It also brings questions about how the relationship might be affected by this in the long run.
Up to him. He gave me that opportunity to fight him. It's only right that if that's what he want to do, I'll give it back to him. Outside of him, I was definitely looking for that Jamel Charlo fight, but they just stripped him for the WBO, so now it's going to be kind of hard, becoming a 3-weight world champion if you don't come back and, fight Tim Tszyu and be successful after his fight with Canelo.
Adding fuel to the Fire Hall of Fame discussions are notoriously political, and Spence's case is already sparking division among boxing's inner group. Some are arguing that Spence's ability to bounce back from adversity, surviving a life-threatening car crash and still defending his titles, makes his resume even more Hall of Fame worthy. Others believe Crawford is setting a dangerous precedent by discrediting single-division champions, as many legends built their entire legacies in one weight class.
They say Crawford is a hell of a fighter, but I don't really respect his resume. What? Other than fighting you. Crawford? You know what I'm saying? I don't really respect his resume like that.
And there's another layer to this debate. Crawford's past with Spence. Some are saying his comments aren't just about Hall of Fame standards. They're personal, that Crawford is trying to erase Spence's legacy because of their rivalry to make sure history remembers him as the better fighter. If Spence gets into the Hall of Fame, it forces the world to admit that he was an all-time great, even if Crawford beat him, and Crawford might not be ready to accept that.
Waves of YouTube. Let me make a plea right now to Terence Crawford. I understand you just beat him. You beat him thoroughly. You're the undisputed welterweight champion of the world, the WBO, the WBA, the WBC, the IBF titles, but you hugged him after the fight for a reason. I am making a plea to Terence Crawford. Even if you elect to give Errol Spence Jr. a rematch, please do not do this for at least a year. Please don't do that.
Meanwhile, Spence hasn't responded openly to Crawford's comments, but of course, it's safe to assume that he's not happy about it. He has always taken pride in what he has accomplished in boxing, and being dismissed so quickly by Crawford is only adding fuel to his competitive fire. There are even talks that Spence might use this as extra motivation for their potential rematch, wanting to show that he is not just a great fighter, but an all-time great one worthy of the Hall of Fame. No matter what Crawford says,
it ain't like Errol can't take him. I think he's the bigger, stronger fighter, but Errol methodically marches down and breaks you down. I don't know if that can be done to Crawford. I think that Crawford is a marvelous boxer. I think he's got the temperament of a champion that really wants to do damage and be spectacular. He can fight conventional, he can go southpaw. He brought the power with him, and I think the biggest thing is that Errol Spence might have gave him a little bit too much time.
The debate isn't dying down anytime soon. Fans, fighters, and analysts are all taking sides. Is Crawford speaking facts, or is he letting his feud with Spence cloud his judgment? Is Stevenson right for standing up for Spence, or is he just being diplomatic? The boxing world is watching. And as the back and forth continues, one thing is certain. This isn't just about a Hall of Fame induction. It's about legacy, pride, and the never-ending fight for respect in one of the most unforgiving sports in the world. But if there's anyone whose Hall of Fame standing should be in question, it's not Errol Spence Jr., it's Terence Crawford. Forget all the smoke and mirrors, and forget the carefully crafted legacy talk from his side. The truth is plain as day. Crawford isn't chasing history. He's chasing checks, and that's the real reason fans, fighters, and critics alike are beginning to question whether his name belongs in the Boxing Hall of Fame.
This is what I think about resumes, and especially when it comes to these two fighters specifically, because they got a lot of the common opponents.
Yes.
But the day that they fought these opponents is what's uncommon. And so you can pick who you want to pick, and I fought him, and he had I broke both eyes, and then you fought all this and that. Bottom line is, a lot of fighters aren't who they are on Tuesday. They're not that same fighter on Saturday.
You are absolutely
That's the
right.
bottom line.
Crawford's own trainer Brian "Bo" McIntyre is out here peddling the same tired line, trying to convince the world that the Canelo-Alvarez fight isn't about money. Well, who do they think they're fooling? Crawford is jumping to divisions to face the biggest cash cow in boxing, not because it makes sense for his career, but because the Saudi money is just too good to pass up. If Crawford's legacy was really his priority, he wouldn't be making this reckless jump. He'd be cementing his dominance at 150 for proving himself against the monsters in that division, maybe even unifying again, but he barely scraped by against Israel Madrimov. The moment that fight was over, it was clear Crawford was never going to run through 150 for the way he did at 147.
154, because this is the legacy fight. He wants this for his legacy. Now, if you ask me, I think Terence Crawford's taking it to the stupid. He's not going up there for no damn legacy fight. You know what? He's going after Canelo for the reason that he said after he fought Madrimov and after he fought Errol Spence. He wants the most money possible. Simple. He's not trying to move down the ladder and shift into reverse.
The younger, hungrier Lions were ready, and instead of meeting them head-on, Crawford found an escape route, the biggest payday boxing has to offer. And let's talk about this Madrimov fight for a second. Fans know what they saw. It wasn't the destruction job Crawford put on Spence. It wasn't some highlight reel masterclass. It was a war. A fight that easily could have been a draw. And that's against a guy who, while skilled, isn't exactly the king of the division. If Crawford struggled there, what business does he have jumping to 168 against a seasoned king like Canelo?
Old videos are starting to surface of Terence Bud Crawford saying he'd never go over 154 pounds, and weight classes are there for a reason. And so a lot of people are questioning, why is he willing to move up to 168 for Canelo all of a sudden? He's going against his own word. It's a money grab. It's duh, bro.
But that's the thing. Crawford doesn't care about working his way up the weight classes. He doesn't care about taking on the real challenges in those divisions. He just wants the biggest name, the biggest fight, and the biggest payday. And when this is all said and done, when the Canelo fight is over, does anyone actually believe he's staying at super middleweight? Of course not. He'll take his money, take his loss, because that's what's most likely coming, and then figure out his next move. That's not a Hall of Fame attitude. That's a cash grab. And this isn't the first time Crawford has taken the easy road to the bag for years. People questioned his resume. On 147, they asked why he wasn't fighting the best names sooner. They asked why he stayed under the top-ranked banner for so long when all the biggest fights were happening elsewhere, and now, when he finally had the chance to prove himself at 150, for he didn't stay long enough to do anything meaningful. This is the same Crawford who said Spence isn't Hall of Fame material because he only ruled one division. Really, the same Spence who beat the best of the best at 147 unified titles a hard way and was undefeated until he ran into Crawford. Meanwhile, Crawford ran through an average welterweight division, barely lived at 154, and is now skipping past the real killers at 160 and 168 just to cash out against Canelo.
What Bud said, weight classes for a reason. But then Bud and his team heard the TBV show. Then it's like, yo, you know what? Bud, we could throw the towel in. We gonna shimmy all the way to the bank. We gonna drop this 9 figures in the bank. We got you. Do we believe we could beat him? Yeah. What other opportunity in life are you gonna get to make 100 and something million?
And he has the audacity to question Spence's reputation. According to many, it's not just immoral. It's laughable. Hall of Famers don't run from the grind. They don't pick and choose their fights based on money alone. They take on the biggest challenges and carve out a legacy that speaks for itself. Floyd Mayweather didn't just chase money, he built his name by dominating the sport at multiple weight classes, fighting everyone who counted when they mattered. Manny Pacquiao didn't just go after big fights, he made his way through divisions by fighting real competition every step of the way. But Crawford, he's skipping steps, he's looking for shortcuts. Sure, if he beats Canelo, people will say he's one of the greatest to ever do it. That's the gamble. But if he loses, and let's be real, the odds are stacked against him, it only proves the point further. Crawford took this fight for the money, not because it made sense for his career, and that's why, when we're talking about Hall of Fame legacies, Crawford's name deserves more attention. Then Spence did things the right way. He fought his way to the top belt by belt without skipping the line. That Crawford is playing the game differently. It's not about belts, divisions, even legacy. It's about cashing out while he still can.
Respectful for Crawford to call you out at 68, say that he can beat you at this weight?
No, you know, everybody wants to fight with me, so it's fine.
And maybe that's fine. Maybe Crawford deserves to get paid. He's putting years of work and built an undefeated record, and now he wants to maximize his earnings. But let's not pretend this is about anything other than money. And let's not pretend that kind of career path automatically gets you into the Hall of Fame, because if there's anyone whose spot should be questioned, it's not Spence, it's Crawford. But what do you think about the whole saga? Share your ideas below, and don't forget to subscribe for more updates.